In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, the original system admin, unconditional system admin of all conditions of reality. This world has a host, and I'm speaking in such a world that I did not create, or any less. Um, Hello, everyone. Welcome to another lecture. I wanted to give a lecture today. Actually, the first title that came to me is like How to Hate Yourself Properly. And then you know, it wasn't a negative lecture, but, and then I decided to kind of like pause from that. Some time passed, and then I landed on the title, Are Humans Living in Each Other's Certainty? Okay, and I thought this is a cool view because it kind of relates to how much of reality we are projecting, how much of reality's meaning we are projecting, and what it really means, and how much of our lives are based on the certainty of humans that we don't know, we've never met. I find it very fascinating from this angle that like we haven't met Einstein. I haven't met Einstein, but I believe in E equals MC squared. I haven't met, many human beings, and yet their ideas, their influences, their efforts, the certainties of their lifetime's fruition, like the conclusion of their lifetime certainty is what echoes on. So, it is very important, I think, for us to begin understanding that we're not just human beings and we're not just living with our own ideas, and it is a privilege how much in the depths of our ignorance that we have simplified reality to the position that it's an object being moved by a subject. So in this life, hey guys, welcome. So to continue, pretty much how much of our lives is from our own certainty? What does our own certainty mean? And how much of our lives is living in accordance to the certainty of others? If somebody tells you, like, imagine I'll give you an example of like this title, and then we're going to dive deeper into it. So imagine somebody, goes to a store and the lights of the store are on. They go and they pull the door, or they push the door and the door doesn't open. Okay? And so the guy's walking back under the certainty that the door didn't open, the store is closed, even the lights of the store are on, right? And there's somebody else walking up to the store, and that guy looks at him and says, "Hey man, the store is closed, I couldn't open the door," and leaves. Now that person has a choice. Either I accept that person's certainty. Okay, I don't know what that guy did, but he's saying the store is closed. Should I just be like, yo, humans are good people, and just accept, or should I go back to that door and maybe try pulling it? Do you see what I'm saying? Maybe try pulling the door. So that's what I'm saying, that sometimes in life, we're functioning under certainties of beings that have attempted things incompletely. Okay? So I think this is a very valid point, that sometimes, see, I'm going to dive into it. I've even prepared a research component for the viewers to read for you. But I want to make this point that if you have been in this, so I'll use myself as an example. I've been on this planet around 12,500 days on planet Earth. Every day, waking up, oh my God, another new day. Oh my God, another new day. So after some point, you begin seeing repetitions. If you like one thing, you guys might not believe this, but I actually started off, way before I started giving these lectures. Way before giving these lectures, I started off reading Charles Bukowski. Do you know? And I was like, man, the art of misery. you know? And so Charles Bukowski's last Earthbound interview, a video you can find online, somebody asks him, hey, great writer of humanity, um, aren't you afraid of death? And he says something that, is very valid, I think. He says, no, because after some point in life, you begin seeing things cycle around, right? And then you begin to see that even if you choose to live as a physical being, the meaning can cycle around unless your awareness to reality shifts. Okay? So in this lecture now, guys, you're gonna hear me explain the world to you in a way that is uncommon, that people don't explain it this way. I was so brainwashed by the other way of thinking about it, do you know, that it's hilarious. Do you know, like, out of my silliness, I bypassed the cultural engineered programming, do you know? And I'm gonna tell you guys how, and it's so hilarious because it's all about the proper acknowledgement of something. If you get, like, I'll tell you this. There was this video, okay, and I don't know what the English word for that thing is. What's it called? Um, Okay, anyways, it's like if you go sit in the passenger seat of the car, okay, and regardless of how much you move the steering wheel, do you know what I mean? If you're not in the right position, the thing that you are with the moment you're in doesn't activate properly. Okay, that makes sense, right? So what I'm telling you is that if I give you a bicycle and you put that bicycle behind your shoulders and carry it instead of riding it, right? You had access to intelligence, but you did not activate it because you did not correctly use it, okay? Or correctly acknowledge it. This is how I'm going to explain it to you. And contrary to how many people come in this position and speak about the system, I am not speaking about the system in the sense that we need to destroy the system. Okay? I consider that from the past, it's progress. From the future, it's underdeveloped. From the present, we choose where we go. Yo, somebody in the chat section said Earth is flat or round. Man, recently my opinions changed, but I will tell you the best way to treat the Earth is that it's a simulation. Okay, it doesn't matter if a simulation is flat or round or squiggly or whatever. You know, they're like, no way, man. We thought the planet was round. We thought the planet was, flat. But guess what? It wasn't even a planet, yo. Sorry, guys. I'm getting too carried away. I should. But thanks for writing that comment. That was, cheered me up. Okay, guys. This is how I'm going to explain it to you. I'm going to explain it to you as if I was born in this world, right? And if I had a chance to explain it to myself again, how I would explain it. Okay. So first way around this earth, the way I was conditioned was that I acknowledge my objective existence. Okay, and then you get named on this earth. Okay, you get idealized. You turn into an idea. You turn into a character in a story, right? And when you look at most people's lives, okay, what happens from the moment they wake up? They identify with what they find in their moment. And guys, when I say Earth is a simulation, it's not like the tradition. Like, I doubt you guys understand what I mean by that when I say that. But anyways, like the way I'm saying it, that's the whole point in these lectures. I'm trying to explain that. So I was conditioned to treat myself as a noun, and I didn't have confidence to do certain verbs, and my whole life I'm like, man, I'm this noun. I got to jump to another noun. I got to go and become another noun. I got to constantly go and become another idea, you know? So I think that was bullshit. Okay, I know that was bullshit. I know the fact that when I was young, they told me, buddy, you got a body, you got a brain, and you got a mind. We don't know really how to explain that to you, but you got a mind, and you got a soul. These ancient books are telling you got a soul, but we don't know, but some people know, you know? Yes, guys, this is live. I've just been talking for years. So, where I'm going with this, what would the proper approach be if I was to explain reality to my younger self again? How would I explain it? Okay, so this is how I would explain. This is how I would explain my younger self to my younger selves. Okay, first, if I was like my future self and I came back, I think I'd smack myself in the head. I don't know. I'd be like, you silly. Like I'd freaking, I don't know if I'd beat myself up if I went back in the past. No, I'm kidding. I would tell myself, hey, buddy, okay, this is how reality functions. In front of your eyes, you have the outer realms. It's an external, public, physical, existential server where you find yourself embodied in a world, in a video game like 3D, instead of pixels made of the periodic table, virtual, visual, like experiential, existential environment. Okay, so in front of your eyes, I call that the outer realms. I'm teaching you this all over, okay? Forget the mind, body, soul. Forget those terms, okay? Forget how, like, traditionally they taught you. Forget the fact that you think you're this little idea in your head, you know? Like, that's all nonsense and incredibly diabolic deception tactics, like genius level deception tactics to make you think, in some sense, that you're one part of your moment when you're all of it, okay? So going forward, starting from your eyes, any human being, this applies. In front of your eyes, outer realms. Now, anybody listening, try this out, okay? Close your eyes. Just listen. Close your eyes and imagine the food you ate yesterday hovering in the air before you go and eat it. If you have closed your eyes, and you can do this, okay? Do you know what that means? That means you don't need light beams going into your eyes. Your eyelids are freaking closed. You can still see. You can visualize. That is a type of seeing. The question of the matters of the soul, if you go actually read and see what's going on, is that they're like, who's experiencing life? Not what they experience is my final definition. Okay? So if you've managed to successfully visualize, imagine, like, see the food you ate yesterday hovering in the air, that event, that action of your being was happening in your inner realms. That's your inner realms. They didn't teach it to us. They just said it's a mind to keep it ambiguous and oblivious. This whole time you've had an inner realms, okay? And I've seen visions of this in the future where you're going to see when this gets adopted in common language, they're going to see, I hope it gets championed in my lifetime, but when that happens, do you know what it would be? It would be like this. Imagine you're a parent. I'm not a parent, okay? I'm not even married. But I'm saying, imagine if you were a parent. I've been a kid, though, before. Imagine you're a parent, okay? And your child comes home, and the parents are like, how was your day at school? And the child's like, it was okay. Silent. No energy, no up and down, completely calm and silent. That's when the parents are like, okay, tell me what's going on in your inner realms. You're not like, do you understand? That means somebody could be like, I'm okay, bro, but doesn't mean in their inner realms they're okay. It could be that something intense has happened. Okay? Right? So then the parent has to know. And if the parent asks the child, is anything wrong? And the child says, no, nothing. That's when something's wrong. Do you understand? Especially if it's in men, because men don't admit their problems. I don't know. I mean, maybe some men do. When you're young, I mean, when you're young, you feel like you don't want to be. How do I say it? I think nobody wants to be a burden. Do you know what I mean? So you want to carry your own burden. Now, women are conditioned to not take that burden that seriously, but men are conditioned to take that burden seriously. Do you know? What that means is, like, again, if right now aliens attack, women and children who are the source of our procreation, and of course, let's say the younger generations, They get shielded by men. Why? Because it's the most logical thing. Do you know? That means like that means if I was in a room of let's say women, you know, or on a cliff and I was just with a bunch of women, you know, I would have to be that guy who like, you know, runs across like the broken bridge first. Like, but what I'm telling you is about a reality acknowledgement and the intensities we were conditioned and the values, and also it has to do with our biological position. You know, I believe that biological existence renders us as a different being, you know? Do you know, even though we're part of the same species, even though we understand the same language, but it's about the function and role. A bird doesn't have the same role as a lion does. You know, a snake doesn't have the same role as a bunny does. Do you know what I mean? I mean, these are roles in existence and manifestation, and after some point, you're gonna realize it's too big to comprehend. Okay. In front of your eyes, your outer realms. Physical existential reality, it's tangible, you can touch it. Behind your eyes, you have access to reality. You have access to your inner realms. You can visualize a flying apple, you can visualize flying cars, but they don't exist in front of you. You can't touch it. Okay? Like I can imagine a Bugatti, but it's not like I can't touch that Bugatti. Do you know what I mean? Right? But I don't need to imagine my body. Like, pay attention here, right? What you are not imagining, what is existing instantaneously, you're assuming to be your being. Okay? Right? So there is this pattern here that the instantaneous moment of existence can be held true by a being, compared to instead of like looking at a photo life as a photograph. Like, you know, I mean, it's easy to contain it as a photograph. That's like the easiest thing to do. But it's actually an unknown verb. The thing I'm trying to tell you is that I was conditioned to treat this as a known noun. I'm a known noun. You're a known noun. All this stuff is known. You know, this world is known. Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, sure. You know, we're in the Milky Way galaxy. Sure, man. Sure, we're on planet Earth. Sure, we're on these nations. Sure, yeah, I got a name too. You know, this is all abstraction, folks. These are all overlays. Our psychological life is a simulation of original forces, right? That means, how do I say? Doesn't mean that our simulated life is the original life. And, you know, for those people still on their mind, is Earth flat or round? Okay, that's an assumption that reality is a physical position only. Okay, I've seen views on this that, you know, for the most majority of my life, I felt it's round, but I think it could be seen like a bowl, like we're at the bottom of a bowl. You know, I mean, I've heard ideas like that, but I don't know, guys. I mean, a part of me feels like, you know, I want things to come round circle. You know, just I don't have time to mess around, you know, with the, you know, Earth's shape, guys. You know, like, you know, we're in the middle of a civilizational shift where human beings are understanding, and over their experiences in the next 100 years, they're going to understand that the human value must be prioritized, okay, over the cultural, social, and everything else that was created by the human. So when I say, okay, think of it this way. You have humans, which are these biological organisms, okay? And then you have the creations of humans. Now, the creations of humans, of millions, so far, like, there was an estimate, like, from 300,000 years ago, they had a consideration, I think it was like 117 billion human beings have ever existed. Right now, 8.1 billion humans are alive on Earth, right? You know, and that becomes like 7%, okay, of all humans that have ever existed are alive right now, okay? And so it's so easy for a human to identify with a subject that is not it, and live in a place that it's identified as again a subject that place isn't. You know, and I'm trying to explain to you that your simulated known self is living in a simulated known world simultaneously when your original unknown self is living in the original unknown world. This is why it appears dualistic. Okay, there's different types of duality. There is a duality in the same dimension, and then there are dualities. That means two dimensions are duals of one another. Okay, do you know? So you have like two sides of a coin in one dimension, and then you have two sides of a coin each being their own dimension, for example. Do you know? So to me, it's very fascinating, because if I identify as an existential being, then reality, of course, has to be existential. If I identify as an experiential being, then of course reality has to be experiential, right? And the whole discussions on this planet is, are we existentially just this, or is there something more going on? And guess what? There's something more going on that I wanted to get to this at the end, but in reality, what we consider to be a planet Earth is a simulation in a field. Okay? Once I had a very sci-fi vision of it, like scary sci-fi vision, that I felt like the planet Earth was empty and there were these giant, not giant, I mean relatively to us, these giant glowing spheres moving all over this empty planet that has no life on it, and these giant spheres are simulating parallel universes of the same empty planet, right? Like I had a vision once like this, but I was like, nah, man, nah, that's too crazy. My sense of it is that if a person just looks at the basic duality that we're all introduced, which is lower and higher, okay, you can see that. Think of it this way. How do I explain it? All right, let's get some music going in the back. This is a song I actually discovered today. It's been on my mind. Okay. In the presence of the original moment that all realities have simulated from as a simulation, as a simulated being on this planet, what we consider to be a planet, to us it is a planet, but what it actually is an existential simulated system. We are also inside a divine surveillance state. You are being monitored and logged in ways you cannot comprehend, because the field knows what the node doesn't, or what the whole node can't capture. Your body is a node. The idea of you is a node. You have individualized. You used to be the environment's movement. Now we are a movement in the environment. The world is very fascinating because it constantly changes you. The moment you choose to hold on to something, the world has passed you by. And so that's the remarkability of how even ideas are held, because they have taught you how to look outside, but who has taught you to look within? And so in order to look within, you must acknowledge the actual presence of reality. In philosophy, there's these two beautiful terms, very important. One is epistemology, one is ontology. These are branches of philosophy, by the way. Philosophy is like a tree. The love of wisdom does not end. This tree goes to the sky as long as there are questions for mankind. Epistemology has to do with how we know truth. Ontology has to do with what truth actually is. And I want to encourage every member of the human species, my fellow species members, to consider how you have gotten to know the world. What methods were used? You don't have to make a checklist. You don't have to analyze this, because in the future AI will be able to do that. You're here to figure out that what do you want to identify as? You have in front of your eyes a physical reality to engage with, where there's other physical beings. And what's fascinating is that there's 8 billion, again, 8.1 billion human beings alive right now. We all see the same stuff in the world in regards to physically, but the meanings are different, which means you can either see it as one multidimensional being is living on Earth, or two different beings are living in one moment. I have an ability to separate my body from the idea of me. The idea of me, I can imagine ways I've lived in the future. You don't know. Like you might think that to me, just because I'm in the human position, I am limited to human ideas. I am not. The humanness, the moment you accept your humanness, you see the dehumanized. Okay? The moment you accept knowledge, you notice the unknown. You see the limitation. Because let me tell you, as someone who's ran 34 laps around the sun, okay, you're all possessed by ideology. That is Shaitan's tactic. What Shaitan is an anti-human force moderator. These are sectors, okay? What does that mean? That means this is an error. Like, God cannot be humanized. And by the way, guys, I am Muslim. Do you know what that means? That means I believe truth is not equal to any condition. It cannot be. That was my conclusion before. How do I say it? Do you know? Because if we're in a box, if all of us are inside a box right now, we are limited to interpreting it from inside the box. We don't know what's outside of the box. I don't know what's outside of my life. You know, my life appears to me as a certain conscious range. This certain conscious range has a presence behind my eyes in ways that are not limited. I can imagine throwing an apple and it shooting with, like, I don't know, as if it's in a vacuum, shooting out from like the clouds and going through the stratosphere, and all of this, But how is it that I can't physically do that in the outer realms? And how is it that I can imagine that, but the moment I imagine myself throwing an apple like let's say a kilometer into the sky, which is impossible, with the human hand, right? And gravity doesn't act on it. I can imagine flying cars. Those flying cars don't come crashing down due to gravity. This suggests that human beings have access to two different world textures, two different world qualities. In one world, you're responsible for your existential position and the existential position of your species. You must honor this. But behind your eyes, you're responsible for how you enter the world of your own meaning, how you construct the walls of the spaces in your mind where you think you're a king. But let me tell you, the crowns are made of paper. The crowns are not real. Behind my eyes, I have moved in ways that are not humanized, at speeds that are not humanized. There came one day where I would geometrically teleport myself everywhere. Do you know what that means? I would walk across the street, my mind would imagine these lines, just from my brain, these lines are appearing everywhere, and from the points and intersections of those lines, I had first-person sight in my inner realms. So imagine you set up a grid, and from every point of that grid you can see. But this was a visual inner realm event, because if I am to explain to you, first of all, understand this, that the biggest issue with confusion and mental illness on planet Earth, there is two reasons, okay? One reason is medical. The person's chemically off. They got to get themselves checked. It could be you're chemically imbalanced, okay? Or the other thing is you must be able to discriminate between your inner realms and outer realms. You must be able to discriminate what you put meaning on and what actually has a meaning before you look at it, because there's so many ways to look at the world. Every person you have seen exists to multiple people as multiple people. So we must understand that we must not limit our world to ourself, because ourself could be eclipsing us from the truth. And what is that truth? That a field knew its beginning and end before time could express any meaning. Because the truth is not humanized. The ontology means what's actually going on. What's actually going on is not limited to the human idea. All scholars understand this. The human is a state. It's more like a vehicle of a position of a field of intelligence animating. So think of it this way. This is why when people talk about past lives to me, I'm like, relax, guys. You know, you're trying to see a past life to the tip of an iceberg. You cannot completely see yourself. We've had various great minds on this planet come and in some sense shine a light, you know, with their flashlights going to these uncharted territories. For example, you have Carl Jung speaking about the collective unconscious. What does that mean? You don't know how many lives you're living right now. You're only conscious of one. Have you noticed? Or maybe if you're conscious of your inner realms, you're conscious of two. But you don't know how life is actually happening. None of us do. Why? Because it's an unknown world. Our ancestors freaked out because they couldn't contemplate it. So they had to give some structure. And in the middle of nowhere, the most divine thing is the arrival of purpose. What you are looking at is a species that is becoming more and more collectively conscious of not just its existential purpose, but its experiential purpose. Now, when you look at the human timeline, at least this world's timeline. Now, as a Muslim, there's a saying, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, which means all praise due to the Lord of the worlds that cannot equate any condition, that cannot be limited to any condition. Therefore, how do I... God is not limited to its creation, just like an artwork is not limited to the artist, even though God is not humanizable. We must comprehend the nature. However, one thing we're certain is that it's a commanded universe. This is why the chicken and egg can't be explained. This is why in a world that's simultaneously being dualistic, you cannot have one logic. You need to have two lines of logic at the same time. This is why it's not enough. I'll give you an example. I'll tell you this. Imagine somebody is at a house party. Okay, they've called people to come and party or something. There's 4 people there. So what they do, it's like such a crazy house party. No, so there's 4 people there, and the person's like, all right, man, I'm gonna order a pizza. So the logic of the moment says, let's say 1 large pizza. I don't know, 4 people can get satisfied by that. Right? So in that moment, the person's on the phone. The logic of the moment commands that, all right, the person's like, sir, how many pizzas do you want? Right? And the guy's like, all right, there's 4 people. I want 1 large pizza. Now, guess what? Suddenly, before the guy answers or actually finalizes the order on the phone, right? Old school times where delivery used to be on the phone, like making orders, So it would be like, imagine that moment where you're about to place that large pizza for 4 people, suddenly 4 other people enter. So 4 of your other friends join. Now there's 8 people. Therefore, the logic changed the moment the context changed. The moment new information came, the logic was not enough. Do you understand? So it doesn't matter how good you are at calculating. It has to do with the inner game of how much you're aware of. Do you understand? That means if you look at an eagle, okay, look at a bird, look at a bird, the king of the sky. Look at the king of the sky. What is the bird can land on the ground, can get that basic horizontal access. Sometimes it descends, and comes to the ground level of reality, or lands on one branch. Yo, man, I believe in this branch of knowledge, and I'm gonna, as a bird, just land on this branch. Little does that bird know, the moment it flies into the sky, it will see the whole forest at once. The little do you know, the moment you don't choose to just be a branch of a self, you will see all yourselves at once. You think it was the Buddha only? Do you know what I mean? You don't understand. The moment you realize this world has a host, all ideological systems change. I don't think many religious people even comprehend, that there is something so shocking in religion, so surreal, right? That it cannot be ignored. It cannot be ignored. You look at this world of ours, you look at it and think of it through system administration. You administer your system. You right now, the idea of you is the system administrator of your biological body. You're administering your assets. If you own a car, if you own a house. Do you see what I'm saying? You are administering your life. Okay? And you administer it based on what you are aware of and what you acknowledge as you. Now, I am telling you, it's so strange, but funny at the same time, and also really silly, how if you don't choose to be a person, then what else can you see? What do you get access to? You know? Like, you know how many people have come up to me, right? And they're like, yo, man, we're all God. And I'm like, excuse me? Yo, we're all God, then what are we doing suffering? You know? I thought, what am I doing being born then? Do you know? What am I doing making mistakes then? What am I doing in an incomplete simulation? So I feel the simulation is God. Do you know what it is? It's like they're like, yo, man, you know, don't worry about the Titanic sinking because the people on the Titanic are the Titanic. Do you know? And I'm like, oh, God. This life is strange. It makes you want things you can't get, and then you get things you never knew you wanted. This world is working with intelligence. It is too designed. There's no reason for everything to be this specifically designed. There's no reason for the human biological body in the middle of the void to be so complex. You know, there's no reason for anything, for any of this shape to be in the middle of nowhere. Okay, and therefore, in some sense, it is too designed. We are in the world of a designer. We don't know, and that designer is the host of the world. But the world is not limited. Excuse me, the designer is not limited to its world in the same sense that if the characters in a novel realize the author is writing them, you know, all they can do is have faith in the story. You don't understand the reason. There's this view that Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, what he started, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, concluded. There's a reason in religious theological lens they consider that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is in some sense the seal of all prophets. Now, what does that mean? Prophet Muhammad was not God. You understand? He was not God. God, he confirmed for till the end this pattern will echo. It doesn't matter. Like even cultures and religions, like guys, many people can go against this pattern, but this is the basic frequency of it. This is the ontology behind the scenes. Okay, that you are intentionally placed in a world that is incomplete, that can never be understood because of its size and scale and its matter of change, and therefore you are here to in some sense notice and play a part. That's the greatest clue. And right now you might not realizing it. You might be. You know, we might think that, you know, advancement means, yo, bro, I got $1 billion. I got next level research stations everywhere. You know what I mean? I got the most advanced, I got like 100, like most advanced AI, like, you know, unique sovereign AIs advising me. You know, it's like, what? At some point you will see that there's more to life than figuring it out. You will see that it's about the quality of it. It's about people, like imagine, so there's been 100, let's say 117 billion people have existed. What was the quality? How many of those humans, you know, regardless of their external realm, outer realm resource and status, how many of them in some sense, like, do you know how much beauty our species has witnessed? Do you know how much honesty our species has witnessed? Do you know how much courage our species has witnessed? 117 billion people is not a small number. Imagine 117 billion lifetimes. Do you know that is the momentum? That's the magnitude, and that's considering only a 300,000 year range. you know? So, for me personally, because I felt I hit the midpoint of my life, and I also felt that I was cast. What does that mean? That means I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate. God really knows. I think maybe it's destiny, you know. But I have noticed something so much more important than myself, that for the rest of my life, I don't care. I can't. It doesn't make sense for me to care about my own happiness. That means they're like, yo, man, how did you get rid of your suffering? Did you get rid of it by getting rid of your identity and becoming a non-dual moment of space? And I'm like, F no. You know, that was the mistakes I made when I was young. You know? Now I know. Now let me tell you what it is, guys. I'm sorry. Like, these talks started very spiritual, and I guess the majority of the people who are listening to this are very spiritual. But I gotta clarify something for you. I was like you. Similarly, the talks are there. You can hear them. Do you know, up to 2023, I think. Do you know? That's when the shift happened. Okay? I felt like, yo, man, I'm the reincarnation of Rishi Vyasa. Even before that, I am even being the simultaneous presence of Rahu, Asma, Vanura, three sectors of space like concentric circles. Do you know? And this is like, yo, man, this is like a rare lifetime. You know, it's like I don't dabble in form and shape. You know, but sometimes, you know, after eons, you got to kind of make an appearance. You know, and I had this kind of game, and even beyond that, I felt like there were parallel lives happening. I felt that in one parallel life, beyond this happened for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, I felt like I was an extraterrestrial in the clouds, in some sort of prison, this in like beyond the Earth's atmosphere. Okay, and this life on Earth was my simulated punishment. You know. There was 2 weeks I felt like that, you know what I mean? And then I began to realize, okay, I can't keep being like, oh, no way, the next image my mind put for me is real. Oh my God, no, the next image my mind put for me is real. Now, after some point, I started noticing how these thoughts are appearing, yo. Like how these thoughts arrive. I don't know about others, guys. I think many people are. You know, because destiny has a skill that doesn't matter how hard you work with. Sometimes your ability arrives because that's how the moment is intended to happen before your birth. The reason God knows the past in Islam, God, one of God's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names is the all-knowing. The Arabic escapes me. I apologize. But it means all-knowing. Okay, I'm a visual learner, so I'll explain it to you the way I've understood it. Okay, God is all-knowing. God is a being that cannot make mistakes. It wasn't born. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't, as Surah, as Ayat al-Kursi says, God does not get tired. God does not sleep. Therefore, think of it this way. If you're spiritual, you're working with mods. You're working with created beings that you think are divine. Once you realize reality is a simulation, your spirituality shifts. You can't be like, yo, man, you know, everything I'm experiencing is real. You begin to notice that what if there's a higher order process and we're only experiencing a lower process? What if we are experiencing something low resolution, and if it was higher resolution, the clarity would be there? You know, like you know what I'm saying, guys? Like 8 billion people on Earth right now, they're atheist, theist debating. That sounds like low resolution dialogue to me. If we were more high resolution, we might realize that one of the most important strategies that the collective human species will in some sense develop is how to be a being outside of the human being. We do have an awareness like that. Like, most people think they are their body, but your body is found in your whole moments of awareness. Your whole moment of awareness is instantaneously present. There is an unknown viewer that can notice the difference between what is an object and a subject. That means if I tell you visualize an apple and I give you physically an apple, right? So you can know the difference between those two, right? And then you have to ask the question, wait a minute, if I can have notice more than one thought, or if I can notice my thoughts, how can I be them? Have you ever thought about this? It's like, yo, man, have you ever thought about how you think you're a thought that's thinking other thoughts, and how that never made sense, and how you must start from presence, direct experiential presence, then your mind probabilizes various possibilities, and the whole idea of it is just like turtles who have to climb out of the sand and make the journey on the surface of an unknown world towards the greater shore, you know? The humanity is not that different, you know. And you know why, for example, the age 18 is very important for human beings? Because that's when the prefrontal cortex has fully developed in human beings, you know, which means they can be responsible individual conscious agents of existence, which means that in some sense they don't need to live in the certainty of others anymore. Do you know? That's the difference between I think childhood and, in some sense, at some point realizing, all right, man, you know, everything, the intensity I saw in my youth is not the accuracy of reality. You know, we are independent agencies. You know, we have to move ourselves. We do witness ourselves. We are experiencing ourselves for the first time. Yo, somebody in the chat section saying you can't handle the truth. I'm like, yeah, exactly, man. It's not human. It's not limited to humanized understanding, you know? So we don't feel it. You guys don't understand the lack of responsibility level that we are, like, it's such a good and easy time, you know, that we don't have to defend the human idea from dehumanized interference yet. That's going to happen probably in, like, I don't know why the number 400 is coming to me, 400 years from now, you know? You don't know what that means. That means it's so easy we're human right now. In the future, it's not going to be easy for them to be human. And there's going to be, I don't think there's going to be external rebellions, but there's going to be next level dialogues on this, hopefully. Because it's a matter of, if we found a more advanced state of being that we could exist in, should we remain human or not? If we as intelligence found a better way to live than how the natural human being is living. Okay, and I'll give you an example that I've written in my sci-fi. So in the future, there's these things called nutrition pods, right? So imagine, like, you know, a child is born, okay, and okay, this pretty much, the child is born, its body is in like some nutrition pod or something, where it's getting nutrition and kind of immortalizing, you know, its body and health, and everything's like optimizing, right? And so in the future, they're not going to have any biological problems like coughs and colds and sickness. That's our time problems. You know, in the future, illness, they're going to figure it out. And then, but they're going to understand that how do I say it? I think in the next, like, it has to be, like, this is the only reasonable thing, that in the next 1,000 years, AI has to find a solution to all illnesses that are based on outer realm. Not illnesses based on, sometimes you could be like stuck in the certainty of another being. Do you know what possession means? I'm sorry to get into this, and this is in the jurisdiction of the unseen, and only God, the system admin of reality beyond the world room, knows the unseen. But if I was to explain to you what possession means, it means occupation of moment. Okay, so you might not believe it right now, but everything is possessing everything here, but it doesn't mean it's evil possession. And it doesn't mean the possession even means ownership, okay? It's another way of saying that there is a strange symbiosis that an individual organism on a planet notices as it begins to realize that its inner life is actually the presence of a field of intelligence, not an idea that's intelligently moving. You are the whole field. If you ever feel when I'm talking or I'm giving these talks, you feel like my certainty is not rooted from this moment, it's because the field brings it forth. You might not believe it. Sometimes me giving these talks is as easy as just being here and watching myself existing for the first time in this way. Because the way I made it interesting for myself, because I put like a ridiculously large goal of like trying to give the 10,000 talks. I want to hear myself give that talk, and I want to see like, yo, man, what were you saying that day? I have this attitude. Like, I listen to my own talks, but I listen to them based on the time. So like right now I'm looking at the clock. It says 3:37. It's 1 hour actually. Let's say 3:37. I would go on YouTube and type in like either 1337, or 2337, and I would see what talk comes, and I would look at the title. Okay. And many times in my life, I've gone through something I haven't understood, and I've just looked at the time and typed in that lecture. And the way you do it is you type in MW1337, and that talk comes. So I've coded all the lectures, guys. You type in the code, you will find that lecture will be the first search result. So are we living in each other's certainty? Well, let's look at a young child. The child is uncertain of anything, yo. The child just enters the world crying. It's the parent's certainty that raises the child. Okay? And it's not just do you know what parenthood means? Parenthood means in a world where there is a higher power, you're collaborating to raise a being that you can comprehend, because genetically there's a familiarity. Like, look at how brilliant it's designed. Your children are like you. Isn't that fascinating? Isn't it brilliant? But then when they enter culture, you begin to see their souls making decisions, and then their characters re-rendering, right? No, guys, I'm just sitting in my car on Earth. I know if I talk too fast, it might come across, but let me say it this way, guys. You're looking at someone who, for the past decade, has been trying to figure this out, because as a human being, I have a kind of OCD, okay? And this OCD is an existential OCD. That means I don't feel comfortable on Earth, not because like the conditions aren't like satisfactory. I am not comfortable on Earth because I don't know where this is, and I'm functioning as an entity of knowledge, and that bothers me. And for the rest of my life, I will be marching towards figuring out what was going on here. But what I've understood is that it's not just figuring it out, it's also the lives you need to be a part of. The reason we have bodies is to be a part of each other's lives. And for the longest time, I was like, yo, this doesn't make sense to me. We're living here, like we're born. Like, if you go read love stories in history, did you know they're all tragedies? All love stories are tragedies. You find it's like two souls find a beautiful moment that it's like together they're eternalized in that private beautiful moment. Only these two souls can understand each other, right? And then it ends. And I'm like, yo, who are we living for if we're gonna die? And guess what? We're living for the future generations. That's what you're doing. Right now, if you choose to do something efficient, you're doing it for the future generations. You choose to do something inefficient, you're doing it for the future generations. You, let's say even saying nice things, bad things to anybody, you're doing it for the future generations. But you have to understand that I calculated it. From ego, it reaches that conclusion. From soul, it reaches that conclusion. Do you know what I mean? That means I have found arguments, right, that logically the ego should align to these solar values that ancient traditions have instilled in the civilizational structure. Guys, if you have questions, please ask, but ask questions about the contents, because I don't really care about myself that much, in these talks at least. The point of it is not me. The point of it is where are all of us? Okay, where are we? Right? What are we doing? 8 billion human organisms, right? We have a future. There's weird stuff happening on the planet. Okay, there's cultural programs and with different ages. You know, there's ancient systems and there's modern systems, and in some sense, these are infused, and civilization is the output of these 8 billion human beings who managed to create a world inside a world while they were inside a world inside a world. And so in like some onionized simulation of meaning, we're like, yo man, what is this? You know, it's more than the simulations, folks. Awaken to the nature of a perspective that in some sense understands there is more unknown than the known. When you become fascinated by what you don't know, and you realize you can't even judge yourself because you don't know who you would be if you knew it, right? Then you become someone who everything gets a glow. This is the glow of fascination, guys. I don't know how to tell you. Anytime I've become fascinated by something, it's like the moment is glowing in my inner realms. Do you know what I mean? And I'm telling you, fascination leads to advancement. That means you become fascinated by what? The most advanced. What is the most advanced power? We explain it as if inside the box, world room, outside of the world room. We humans don't know what's outside of the world room, but there has been contact. Do you know, people are like, yo man, when's extraterrestrial contact is gonna happen? I'm like, guys, forget extraterrestrial contact. You know, the author of existence contacted existence. The characters, the author wrote a novel where the characters are destined to meet the author. Imagine you creating a work of art, creating a character, and that character coming to life, coming and meeting you, and you liberating that character. The higher power is liberating the lower realms by showing it that it's in the presence of the higher power. I don't know, man. As somebody, you know, using the online alias Mr.Within, you know, you gotta look within you. And what that means is that right now in a dualistic realm, reality's basis can be experiential first, then existential, can be existential, then experiential. And these are the two types of human beings that are living on this earth. These classes in the future, I've written it in my sci-fi. I'm an unknownist. There will be knownists. Everything's going to be divided between unknownism and knownism. Guys, I'm trying to find this song. Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, I need to hear this song. Let's hear it. This song, guys, brings me peace. Because not just because I've given, like, I think over like maybe 200, 300 lectures over the song. Probably less, but this song is very important to me because it was present with me in moments I cannot forget. You know, I cannot explain to you who I am. I can't explain to you how I'm present behind my eyes. I can just tell you that as the awareness of the whole moment, I find my body in my moment. I find the world in the moment. I find everything, the shapes and forms and everything that I have processed and calculated and considered to be real, all as content within a moment, an unknown moment of awareness. I consider myself that right now you're not listening to a person. You're listening to an unknown life force that's moving this life form in accordance to a field that already knows how the moment should move. After some point in this life, you graduate from physical awareness from objective awareness, you graduate to subjective awareness. After you have moved in your inner realms for some time, and you've got a sense of that realm too, from that you in some sense move to a nature of reality that doesn't happen in accordance to the shape of reality. It happens in accordance to its energetic presence. It happens in accordance to its presence. Right? So I'll give you an example. When I was younger, I would go into a room or somewhere and wherever, right, in public, right? And I would be like, oh my God, what idea am I right now? What should I exactly say? What should I exactly do? Oh my God, what is this? Have I understood the moment? Like, I had this ridiculous overthinking mind, okay? But now, because I know, what out of my ideas are me and what isn't, what is the moment and what is the awareness to the moment, because I can discriminate between the inner realm and the outer realm, I am very comfortable. I don't know how to explain it to you. I am no one, okay? I'm not going to say Vala Magulis right now. It's just fucking... No. When I say I'm no one, I mean just like how my eyes were since childhood. I have a memory before I learned language as a child, okay? And that memory, I know through that memory that a part of me knows myself better as a force than as a form. It's the presence. You don't have thoughts emerging. You don't have your mind. I'll tell you my mind, and it took me so long, and throughout the years it's like becoming more gentle, right? But my mind is one of those minds that's like, it lives ahead of the moment. I was always like this as a kid. When my parents would take me and my twin brother to a museum, I would run through the museum. Do you know what I mean? Right? I would see everything. Do you know what I mean? But I would be running through the museum because, like, I don't know, I had an experience once where the museum was closing, But the reason I'm saying this is because for me, it's an existence is inviting me to, in some sense, see what it is in every moment. And there's a fascination for that. I am grateful for my physical existence. Like, this is pretty cool, having a body, being a skeleton. Move your hands right now. Isn't that cool? Like, we can move. Like, this is cool, being a form and a shape, right? But I think what's more cooler is what this moment has access to, or it's another way of saying, what is the true presence of the moment beyond how we've personalized it. Anyways, folks, I'm going to end the talk here. I'm going to say some final words. Thank you for listening this long. It always impresses me when people listen to these. And I just want to tell you that the mind can live ahead, and your mind does live ahead of you. And we can experience things before experiencing them in our mind. We can imagine, like, if you see, like, I don't know, a branch that's about to fall, you can experience in your mind, if I go underneath it, this is going to fall on me, right? So your mind lives quickly, like quicker than your conscious. It's like your unconscious mind is living quicker. Like, you're living quicker behind your eyes than you're actually slowly deciding in front of your eyes, And I'm saying, when you become aware of your inner realms, you cannot notice your mind if you think you are your mind. By the way, anything you think, like a tree cannot observe a tree outside of itself. Do you know what I mean? How do I explain? A tree cannot experience that the same tree. Like I can't be inside a room and have the outside view. Okay, I can't be inside a building and have the outside view of the building. Okay, I'm pretty much saying that the unknown presence of the world is more fascinating than anything my personality has managed to identify with. It's alive, it's an unknown verb, we're conditioned to treat it as nouns. It has a host, there's a system administrative intelligence, moments are orchestrated. It's very obvious after some point, you can see the beauty in its design. The most fascinating thing about this world also is that if you look at free will, right, like free will applies on micro level things, but it doesn't apply on macro level things. Like I can have a free will to move this cup like to another part of to another place, right, or move my laptop to like somewhere else, right, and that's like, okay, my free will expected something, my free will received its expectation. But when it comes to more things that have to do with us not being able to ignore the presence of the whole system, they are not limited to human free will. What that means is you can imagine things, right? Or you can think of it this way: two generals with their armies fighting, and one general, the generals know eventually one of them will have a disadvantage that the other will take advantage of. Like that's the whole point of war. I don't know if people know this, by the way, in pretty much many fighting games, right? Any game you have an opponent, right? Pretty much you're waiting for them to make the first mistake, you know? But anyways, where I was going with this though, is that something I had to come to terms with of the magnitude of how fascinating and mysterious this world is. Through the theological lens, in this life, even if I, okay, think I'm doing something right or think I'm doing something wrong, because death is not the final moment, the meeting of the system admin is, returning to the original state of being is, the original moment is, confronting the original moment of our being again is. I could do something and think it was good, and at the end of my life, let's say in an afterlife review protocol beyond my understanding, God is going to say, no, you did something wrong. Maybe I like, before I was, understood Islam, I in some sense, loved this girl and had like intimate relationships, and then in some sense later on realized, oh my God, it was an error, but I'm telling you, what I'm understanding from reality is not that God has created all this existence just for us to be a specific existence. I don't think so. Or I should say it differently. We people have faith in God that created them, but they don't have faith in people and the world. You have people saying they're religious, and then they go kill other people, and then everybody in the world thinks that's what religion is. Madness. Pretty much I'm saying I could make we can use our free will to make different kinds of decision, but there could be a chance that the value of our decision is not justified by us. It's justified by an awareness that saw more than us. Okay? Anyways, folks, thank you for listening. Are we living in each other's certainty? I think up to this point in the lecture, I think it's clear. to some degree. We simulate, or we overlay our inner realms on the outer realms, on the outer forms, to give them meaning. Okay, but that's our certainty. Okay, and sometimes if we don't directly go experience something, we are functioning under the certainty of others. I am functioning under the certainty, that Einstein knew what he was doing. You know what I mean? Or like, to some degree, right? I'm functioning under the certainty that when I press the gas pedal, the car's gonna move. I'm functioning under the certainty that, like, when I press the record button, it's gonna be live streamed. Or when I press the go live button, It's very fascinating. Wonder about the nature of reality. Wonder about how you've given it meaning. Wonder about what it means beyond your meaning. And if you discover that moment where you realize, just like you can look at an object from different angles, you can look at subjects from different angles. That's called context shifting, folks. And if you attain that skill, it's like, well done. I don't know, go on Discord and tell us about it. Thanks, guys. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, in the presence and in the honor of the original moment, the original unconditional moment of being that all simulated existence has expressed from, in honor of the highest order process, in honor of the greatest value, the unconditional presence that moves, the unconditional presence or the unconditional power that has commanded fields, invisible fields, to in some sense move visibly as nodes of manifestation, as tips of the icebergs of manifestation. It's a way more advanced and incredible world than human ideas, and yet we must be a very advanced species and usher in the advanced humanity with the realization that in front of our eyes, the greatest external vision, humanity will build the most advanced civilization known in the presence of man, and the greatest act of praise to the Creator that is the most advanced. All of you. If theologically, I am even speaking to all the specifically religious people on this, like all the Muslims on this planet. Theologically, God commanded us into existence, imbued us with its essence, gave us ruh, and in some sense commanded us to perform. And in Islamic theology, God commands its creation to say the divine names. That means it activates its sectors of awareness to reality. At least that's how I interpret it. And so all creation bows except one moderator, or one being that becomes moderator, or whatnot. Therefore, theologically, we are designed to be the creation of the higher power that in some sense presents that higher power to all beings. This doesn't mean we act like gods. It means that we care for lower order processes to get up to us, and then us to get up even higher. What that means is in 2026, sorry everybody, everything in existence, we're still eating animals, right? But in the year 3027, they're going to be sitting in schools with notebooks, who knows, with advanced AI upgrades, Anyways, thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, and the most advanced. May God bless our species. And I know that the greatest performance of our species awaits. Thank you.